Hey, it's Bill. I'm back again, and this is part two. Remember, I did the lovely chicken cacciatore, and I said I would make this a double feature day with my risotto. Risotto is kind of like a scary thing, right? Because it's like this huge, like labor-intensive thing. Well, it really isn't. Start to finish, once you get the rice in there, you're going to stir it, and I forget who it is. I think it's Emerald. It says that 19 minutes, no more, no less. Yeah. Alright, so he's made it 1,000 times, and so he's got it, right where he wants it. But for the rest of us, what we're going to do is we're going to start with 3 tablespoons of olive oil in here. And I've got it pretty toasty. And you can always check. It's singing. So I got a whole sweet onion, medium size, which is funny because all they have was large, so I just didn't cut the whole thing up. Same difference, right? So, it's really funny because I've made risotto, or I've attempted to make risotto a couple times, and I was just like, it really sucks because when you go to a restaurant, and if they do it right, it's so worth it. And I didn't know what I was missing, and I just think that patience is probably a huge virtue of that, right? Something you just can't rush. So what we want to do is we want to get everything in each step cooked just right and add the ingredients just right. And you're going to find it just comes together. And if you're not happy the first time, don't despair, because that's what I've done with lots of these kind of recipes. Try it again, again. And guess what? Also know, hey, I make the best on the planet. And your neighbors will all be asking for your recipe. Don't give it to them. Sell it to them or sell them the risotto. That's the key. Just kidding, because I give out my recipes for free. Just that kind of guy. Alright, so anyway, my onion's just starting to cook. And we're going to kind of do this in stages, alright? So now I have my cup full of garlic, like 4 cloves. It's not garlic risotto, so, we're okay. Garlic's really good for you, okay? Heart-healthy food, eat it all the time. Just make sure you brush your teeth. Alright. So, this is kind of starting to perfume. Oh, that was refreshing. I got like 8 ounces, so I started with 1 pound, and I always cut all that wicked fat stuff at the root end off of my asparagus. And asparagus wasn't great, but what I've done here is I had a couple of the heads that were not great either, so they got cut off. You really should want your asparagus cut kind of in small pieces. I'm really bad at guessing, 1.5, 2 inch, whatever. I had someone actually, like, when I made this for an occasion, they're like, oh, you can't put the garlic in this soon or it'll ruin it. I'm like, actually, I like it this way. It doesn't get all funky, and it's pretty darn good. So, alright, so I want my asparagus. And we just want to get it coated and get it happy. Fresh out of the fridge, So I had a really hard time figuring out, I used to make risotto in a saute frying pan, whatever you want to call it. And because you need the surface area. But the problem is when you make something like this, there's a lot of quantity, so it wasn't deep enough. And you don't, I just wasn't getting the effect I wanted. That was one of the things where I really changed to a pot. And it's kind of ironic because I used to see a lot of professional TV chefs use frying pans, and I looked up a recipe the other day, and guess what? They're using the pot just like this. Actually, it's smaller. But surface area is important, so I do like to keep the larger pot. Alright, so this is just loverly. And I don't think I told you this, it'll be in the recipe, but you want to end up with about 8 ounces of asparagus. Now, I have 8 ounces sliced mushrooms. Let's see what happens to these guys when I cook them. So they're on the top layer right now. I'm not stirring them in right now because I want to get them kind of steamed a little bit, so they're going to absorb some of that steam and hopefully start to cook. And then I'll start stirring. While I'm waiting for that, I got some black pepper. And it's really kind of important. Because actually black pepper is a big flavor in here. Because otherwise it's kind of boring. And the stock I use is salt-free. So this is the one time I'm going to say half teaspoon of salt. That's half. Is plenty. Alright, now let's stir this around and see what it looks like. Oh, look at that. It looks so pretty. I love the way the asparagus really greens up when you start to cook it. Now I want to cook this to kind of get that mushroom to cook and start the evaporation process. So while I'm waiting for that, I got a little fresh thyme. Fresh thyme is really, really lovely. And you only need like a teaspoon. I probably went a little crazy. I think if you mush it down, it's probably a teaspoon and a half. But I made something else with thyme, and I just realized how much I love it. Alright, so let's get that down there so it can... have time in the building. Just hit the heat and just fragrances. So I'm really hoping that everyone runs out, tries this recipe, and goes, oh Lord, this is really great. So if you don't like asparagus, don't let that be the turnoff. I probably don't say this enough, but substitution's fine. You can do this with spinach and mushrooms. If you don't like mushrooms, then leave them out. Just use the asparagus. I mean, there's so many things, and I always kind of waited for people to ask me, and they don't always. So I'm just going to start telling you that experiment. And just as you don't like wine, you stop. I mean, there's so many things you can do to, make it your own. And certainly, if you have a question about that, put it in the comments. I will respond, tell you what to do. And maybe someone that was afraid to ask will be like, hey, I'm glad you asked. Okay, so I got half a cup of wine. So we're connecting my chicken cacciatore with my risotto by the fact that I'm using the same wine, right? Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand. I'm sorry, from South Africa. I've got mushrooms here, got mushrooms there, right? So we're kind of just the symbiosis of some of the flavors. So I got half a cup of white wine. We're going to cook that down. I want to get it nice and rolling here. Rolling, rolling, rolling. This is going to really help kind of push the mushrooms to the limit and get them to shrink down. And cook. Some nice green asparagus in there. And for those of you, be honest, you didn't like asparagus because your mom bought frozen and cooked the heck out of it. And I've done a few asparagus. I put them in my quiche. I've done some other things with asparagus. Really, really enjoy them. All right. I got my cup of Oreo rice. I'm going to get this well coated in here. And now is the fun part. Okay, it's the boring part, but it's fun because you get to watch me, right? Got the heat up, a little more than half medium. And basically what I need to do now is watch. I need to watch, and as soon as I see that the liquid is disappearing, I'm going to add stock. So I have 3 cups of stock here. Comes in a box of 4 cups, right? So that's really great because it really depends on how this is all coming together. Sometimes you're going to need a little more, and I guarantee you're going to need at least the 3 cups. So if you're really nervous about this, let's set a timer so we have a goal. I'm going to set it for 15 minutes because that's the minimum time. But it's so you make sure you are actually cooking it for at least 15 minutes, or it's not going to be done. And plus, a couple minutes was lost before I set the timer, so we're probably closer to 17 minutes. And if we go by Emerald rule, that means we're 2 minutes shy. And more realistically, I don't watch the clock, but if I were to, I've kind of thought about it when I've made this before, it really ends up being just a little over 20 minutes. Alright, no fluid in the bottom of the pan. So we're going to do this like half a cup at a time, 3/4 of a cup. Look at that. Would you call that half? It's exactly, okay? That's why surface area is so important, because guess what? It's going to really help cook the rice in that part and get that evaporation going, getting that absorption going. That's why a big pan. Paella pan would be great to make this with. Now in the beginning, you're going to see the rice, the risotto, is absorbing the liquid pretty darn quick. But resist the temptation to pour a whole bunch of liquid in here, because that's going to really defeat the purpose down the road. Pretty close, huh? I normally would pour it right out of the box, but I just wanted to see it. I'm not lying. You really want to do this like half cup at a time, especially your first time. You know, if you made it a couple times, you may, I know what I'm doing now. I'm looking at going, you know, I cut some of these pieces of asparagus a little long. It'll be okay, it'll still taste good. But I was in a hurry. Prepping a lot of food this morning. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep doing this. When we get down to the last cup, I'll be back, because I know you don't want to sit here for the next 10, 11, 12 minutes, alright? Alright, so we're ready to put our last half cup in, and you can see it's pretty dry on the bottom. We don't want to get too dry because we don't want to burn it, so I'm going to throw in my last half cup. And like I said, slow but steady wins the race. It's been about 17 minutes. My timer had already gone off. And you can see we make this plentiful again, and we're just going to stir it up. So it'll give me a chance to get the camera mounted again and show you how we're going to finish this off. So we'll be seeing you back in just a moment. Alright, so it's all good. We've got just another, down to the seconds, man, to get this back to where it's at that almost dry state. But what I want to make sure is it cooked? Definitely. So it's kind of a chewy consistency. We just want to make sure there's no hard stuff in there. Okay. So we're right down to the last seconds, like I said, and this is like, so turn down the heat, we're going to let this, because I know it's done. And if you tasted it and it wasn't done, you're going to add another half a cup and stop. But I don't have to do that. Alright, so I turn it down, right? So, this is a big, that's right. I think it still needs another 20 seconds. But I can still talk. Alright. Just want to get that liquid down. Because, you know, it's kind of funny. It doesn't look real pretty when you put it on a plate, but it tastes so good. So the age-old argument about making risotto is some people put dairy in it and some people don't. Well, if you don't want dairy, you don't have to. Trust me, it's very creamy as it is. I guess I'm old school and I've always made it with dairy, because 90% of the recipes you see out there, you know, except for the new vegan recipes. But how I like to set mine up, there we go. I told you, it's literally, we were seconds away from perfect, is a 1/4 cup of cream. I got half a cup of fresh Parmesan cheese. And I got just a little bit of Italian parsley. You can throw this on top when you serve it up, or just stir it in. It's not going to have time to really turn colors, you know, lose its greenness. And I just think it looks pretty. So now I'm going to just give this that final stir around. I'll show you why I think this is the best. It's really hot. Tina Turner, simply the best. Better than all the rest. Oh. All right. I think this is spectacular. I'm going to show you what this looks like. Just going to dish a little up here. So if you've ever had risotto out, you know this is what it looks like, or it's supposed to look like. And I really feel like you can only achieve that with a little bit of dairy, you know, with the cream. And the Parmesan cheese. Ooh, that's hot, darn. But this is beautiful. And I can tell you because I've been biting little pieces to make sure it was cooked. And, you know, all said and done, we cooked the risotto for 20 minutes, maybe 21, because I did kind of go back and I've been watching the clock. So I would say it was 21 minutes. The key is just waiting until it's that chewiness. This is beautiful. It tastes really, really good. Hope this is something you can try. And just imagine it with a piece of my chicken cacciatore next to it. And let me tell you, you'll never be so happy. And you can use risotto. You can serve with lots of things. You know, I have my Venetian chicken recipe. That'd be great with it too. I mean, there's so many things you can serve. I just like chicken with risotto, okay? That's me. Make the risotto any way you want. Put whatever you want into it. I just like to finish it with a little bit of Italian parsley in there, which you can see the flecks, and the cream and the Parmesan cheese. Everything else is up to you. Thank you. Hope you have a really great day. Hope you keep subscribing and ringing the notification bell and commenting. And like I've always said, unfortunately, YouTube, if you haven't seen one of my, if you haven't actively watching my videos, they're unsubscribing people. And so, you know, if you see you're unsubscribed, just resubscribe. Appreciate it. Have a great day.